So today, we are continuing and Express Yourself, and I'm so honored to get to bring this message this morning and speak my heart, what's going on. But first off, how many of y'all loved Andrew's message last week? Come on. It was perfectly set up to engage our hearts and connect our hearts to what God's trying to do. And it was an amazing thing to see where God's heart is for us and see where our heart needs to be for God. And we're going to continue this morning. Now that he flooded the room with, literally flooded the room. I don't know if there was a dry eye in this place last week. We're going to continue and talk about practical steps that we can take as a church, practical steps you can adopt in your life and habits you can start adding to your life to produce this spirit of worship and this life of worship. And so today we're going to be talking about express yourself in God's presence. And first off, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Micah Janes, if you don't know who I am, and I have the complete honor to be part of this amazing team that is intentionally trying to do church, that is intentionally trying to make a difference in our community. I've been in worship ministry for about 15 years now, been leading for 10 or so. And actually, fun fact, my first worship team, real worship team that I got a part of was with Scotty, and Scotty was my worship leader. So we go way back. It's been crazy ride and a lot of fun, but yeah. So that's who I am. Been in worship ministry for a long time. But what I want to talk today is first off is kick off in values and getting into worship. Like the whole reason I got into music in the first place is because definitely I wanted to be a rock star, right? I wanted to grow up, be a rock star because that was the cool factor. No, come on, man. No, I got it. All right, Scotty, no. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted the cool factor, and, chicks dig rock stars, right? And I thought that'd be a great way to land a woman, and I was right. I landed a pretty hot babe, man. I'm telling you what. She's good looking. And then, then we see more rock stars, and then this Maroon 5, who I loved growing up, took off, and now Adam Levine is this big superstar, and I get compared to him all the time. In fact, the other day I walked to McDonald's and some lady was like, "Didn't I see you take your shirt off on TV the other day?" No, ma'am, that wasn't me. And so, no, I've been in this for a while, and worship ministry has been something that's been very hard to stay grounded because we remember why we do it. We have to remember why we do it. It's not just playing music. It's not just being a musician. It's not getting up here, being this rock star worship leader or drummer or whatever it is that you do up here. The whole point of worship is for us as a church to come in here and declare and give thanks and honor God and bring our burdens and lay them down and support each other and love on each other and declare God's glory and create a lifestyle of worship where it's, man, every time we get together as a family, we worship our God. And so it's been so many times for me engaging in worship and being this worship leader of having to constantly refocus my values and refocus what I'm called to do. And it's so hard, to not walk off the stage expecting or wanting that attaboy, that good job, or man, you did a good job. And you start living for those things and you start going through those motions of doing that to where you go, that's kind of what it is. And then sometimes in my past, Sundays just become another Sunday. It's just another song. We get up there, we go through the motions, you do a good job, all right, cool, we did our part. And I feel like that's the same way that we engage in church with worship is that we just kind of, all right, this is what we do. We sing these songs and we just do what we do and we just go through the motions. But I'm telling you, I feel like today, talking about this, express yourself in God's presence, is there's an answer there that launches us into our future, that launches us into what God's doing. But it all starts with why. And we have to come back and remember, why are we here? We're here to change our community. That's it. That's why this church started, was because we believed that there was a change that needed to happen. There was something that needed to switch. And our why is coming back to bring hope to the broken. That's why we live as Christians, is we believe that Christ gave us hope, that Christ died for us so that we could live. So our mission is to bring hope to the broken. And then something that Andrew talked about last week that I believe is so important, and it's something that I think we should all adopt and start referring to ourselves as, is we're here to give people opportunity to encounter family, true family. And this is why we exist, is to bring people into family, to introduce them to their loving Savior and set them on a life serving God, knowing who they are as a child of God. But sometimes we lose our value. Sometimes we lose our focus, and it becomes about who we are, what we can do, what we can obtain from God, the blessings that we can get from God. And we have to come back and refocus. And so a big part of this worship, this part of ministry, or this series is that we're talking about expressing ourselves and living a life of expression towards God. And something that I believe as I was writing this message is to bring about real change, we have to develop life habits that demand an outcome. That's deep. It's that demand. Not life habits that we start going, okay, I'm going to do these things. Like, we have to be intentional. Something I was talking about or talked about in the first service, I want to bring it right now, is that we have to start learning to be intentional with what we do, with who we are and how we live. And we have to be intentional with the habits that we put in our lives if we want the outcome to happen. Because if we want something to change, what has to happen? Change. We have to start changing something inside of us. If we want worship to explode in this community, we have to start changing the way we worship God. And it's not to come back and start doing more works and doing more things. It's just getting into this intimate relationship with God, because this is why it's so important to maintain and start building an intimate relationship with God. Because what's done in private, it echoes in public. And it's so true. You know, I've started off getting into this relationship with God and have had to come back and started developing these habits. And even in developing these habits, I have to start forcing myself to get into this relationship, to start focusing my mind and remember what God's doing. But we're going to continue. But a few examples right quick of people that definitely operated in the presence of God is Joshua. Love this dude. Walked around, set the building or the city 7 times for 7 days, and the walls came crumbling down. You think he would have done that without being in the presence of God and knowing the Spirit of God? No. He would have done like any other human and gone in and tried to kill everybody. David was a man after God's own heart. And what set David up to be successful was his relationship with God, his intimate relationship with God that produced him to be able to take out that giant. He didn't operate out of his own selfishness and his own will, or else he would have just been the one that was praised. But you even see it in his heart as a young boy walking onto the battlefield to take down Goliath. He didn't walk onto the field and go, I'll take him out. I'm strong enough. I'm big enough. I'll take him out. No, he walked in because his heart was connected, said, no one defies the armies of the living God. No one defies him. His heart was so connected. And then we got Daniel. This dude could have gotten eaten by the lions. The king told him, don't pray. We're not going to pray. We're only going to worship our gods. Don't pray. And he prayed. He knew that was the most important thing, was that intimate relationship. And what happened? He knew the outcome. He knew he was going to get caught and get thrown into the lion's den, but he went anyway. And God closed the mouths of the lions. And that kind of faith doesn't happen without an intimate relationship with God. And what about these dudes? Shadrach, and Benny. Shadrach and Benny, man. See, I got most of my theology from VeggieTales, so that's how I remember these guys. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And all I still see is them worshiping a big chocolate bunny. But it's so true, man. We got Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if you know that story, it's guys that the king said, you're going to bow down and worship this chocolate bunny. And whenever the trumpet sounds, you fall down on your face, and they didn't do it. So what happened? They all got gathered, and they proved Nebuchadnezzar wrong so many times. And I don't know why it took so long, but finally this was a breaking moment for him, and he saw that whenever they got thrown into the furnace, God was there. And we just sang that song this morning called Hindsight. And if you're, walking in, you don't know that story, that's what this is talking about. And I want you to just understand the depth of this lyric and see what we're talking about here. And this is why worship is so important, and knowing what God is doing is so important. It says, you're in the pain, you're in the promise. And on the days the furnace finds my faith, you're the fourth within the flames. That blew my mind when I saw it. It's so poetic to hear it that way. The days the furnace finds my faith. What's the furnace for you right now? Whatever it is, when that furnace finds your faith, when it's met by your faith, we're talking about you develop deep faith when you're in an intimate relationship with God, which produces an expressive life of worship, which produces you not worrying about the lions attacking, not worrying about being thrown into the furnace. You're the fourth within the flames. He's always there. So again, the best way to begin and maintain lasting results is in an intimate relationship with God. And this morning, I want to look at a passage that I went to when preparing for this message. I started just going, God, what do you want me to talk about? And I read a devotional that talked about this verse, and then went back and read the backstory and watched a documentary on the backstory of this First and Second Corinthians, and I was blown away because it reminded me so much of the modern church. And it is, because this is when the church was started. This was when Paul launched the church, and he launched the church in Corinth. And just a backstory right quick. So he launched the church in Corinth. In 1 Corinthians, he gets a letter which says, hey, they're not doing what they've been raised to do. They've lost their focus. They're having sex with everybody. They're worshiping other gods. They're living for status. They're living for wealth. They've completely lost their focus. And Paul writes them a letter and says, guys, get it together. This is not Jesus. This is not what the faith that you were founded on. And they, of course, didn't obey it. So what does he do? Daddy's got to come home, show up in person, and go, all right, we're going to fix this. We're going to make it happen. And so he comes in 2 Corinthians, and he begins to try and to form this back together and get people rallied around. And he's faced with all these great men of stature that everything Christianity offers is all about your wealth in the kingdom and your glory and lifting you up and this stature. It's just kind of like that's what's been developed is this damaged value system in the church. And so Paul's faced with it, and he comes in and he goes, guys, this is not the way that we're supposed to be operating as a church. We're called to the broken. Again, remember your why. We're called to the broken. We're called to embrace people and add them to our family, to develop disciples and send them out to share the good news, the love of Christ and what God is doing. But they've all stepped away from the Spirit of God, and they're being led by their own selfish intellect or their own logic, which is me. It's a selfie world. We're back to it. We live in a selfie world. And so Paul has met with this group of people that say, who are you to tell us what you do or what to do? Who are you to tell us that this is how we're supposed to operate? One, you're poor. You're always poor. You can't make anything. You're always having to work. And look at these men that God has blessed with great wealth and all this stuff. You're poor. You're not that really that good of a speaker, and kind of ugly. You know, it's like they just threw all this back at him. And Paul jumps into this letter, and I love this letter because it brings everything back to the root of why the church exists and why we exist and why how we're supposed to live. And he jumps in and he says, starting in chapter 3, says, are we beginning to commend ourselves again? Are we beginning to make this about us again? Or do we need, like some people, letters of recommendation to you or from you because they were going, prove to us your credentials and why we should listen to you? And I love what he says here. He says, you yourselves are our letter, written on our hearts, known and ready and read by everyone. You show that you are a letter from Christ, the result of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of the human hearts. Again, he's connecting it back to human hearts and the spirit of the human heart. And he's saying, you're going back at this wrong, because it's like Andrew talked about last week when he said, when did we start thinking we have to make ourselves a certain way to be with God? That's human nature, is to fall back and go, I have to clean myself up. I have to make myself perfect. I have to do all these things. And that's what they were doing. They were bringing back, which got distorted, to going, okay, I've got to be successful to be accepted by the presence of God. I've got to be big and have lots of wealth to know that I'm blessed by God. And he's going, no, man, it is not by the tablets of stone. It's in the human heart, the Spirit of the living God. Such confidence we have through Christ before God. Not that we are competent in ourselves to claim anything for ourselves. This isn't for you. Again, he's saying this is not for you. Quit being competent in yourself. This is not about you, but our competence comes from God. He has made us competent as ministers of a new covenant. Not of the letter of the Spirit, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. And I want to bring some context to what he's about to say, because he jumps into the glory of the new covenant. Because Moses was blessed with the glory of God. And then as you know, through men, stuff fades, but with Jesus, nothing fades. The glory is set. The veil is torn. It is open and available to everyone. But as the leader in that time, Moses was given the Spirit of God. And that Spirit was fading. That glory was fading. So we put a veil over his face so that the people couldn't see that glory was fading. And so he says that covenant has been destroyed. The veil is no longer there. It's lifted. Everyone can have the Spirit of God inside of them. But you got to choose it. You got to start operating in it. Therefore, since we have such hope, we are very bold. We're bold about this. We're bold about the glory of God and the glory of Jesus. Now, the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's, or reflect the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. We're being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. And I wonder, we wonder why. There's something that just gets quenched in the church. And as we talked about this series, and something that's been big on my heart is like we just did this 40-day challenge of this prayer challenge. And in the midst of this, I just felt my spirit being lifted up. I felt more bold. I felt more energetic. I felt like God was doing something inside of me, and I was getting more confident in what God was doing. I was hearing more from God, which again brings back to the truth of going, maybe the way that we stay committed isn't through our works, but through the Spirit of God, which produces the works inside of us. If we start viewing ourselves in a different way as partners with God in this mission to bring about complete worship and breakthrough in our community, is by engaging in his Spirit, by soaking in the presence of God. And when I say that, I know it sounds like the presence of God, intimate relationship. It sounds kind of churchy. You're like, that it's churchy, but it's so true, because the only way I really get to know my wife and my children is being in their presence. We understand it in human nature of the only way to really get to know somebody and get close to somebody is to constantly be in their presence. So why wouldn't we start there with God? Is engaging in his presence and having a deep, intimate relationship with him. And so for me, just a practical step for me is how I engage with God is I have to get up in the mornings, turn off the world, turn off the sounds. And literally, I lay there and I picture myself just coming above earth. And God is right here. And I get a new perspective and go, you created this. It's so small and I'm just a piece of it. What do you need me to do? And then I start just engaging with him. And so I'm a person of structure. Like I'm having to start, for me to operate properly, I've got to start having step-by-step things in my life. So that's why I wanted to talk about this and kind of develop these three things right here that grow, three things that grow in an intimate relationship with God. And I promise you dive into these three things and start thinking on them. Write them down. Start thinking about them. You will see a breakthrough in your life. You'll see something start being transformed because it can't help it when you engage and you're all in with the Spirit of God. It's like my wife's always telling me when I sit down, I can be with God, I can be at the dinner table, but if I don't put the phone down, I'm not there. She's like, we need your attention. I do listen, babe. We need your attention. God needs your attention. He desperately has something in store for you, but he needs you to engage in his presence if you want to see the change happen. 3 things that grow in an intimate relationship. It reveals the truth of our hearts. A.W. Tozer, a guy that I've been so impressed with. Scotty sent me some quotes by him, and then I found a book that I forgot I had, and I started reading the biography. And then, just find out this man understood what it meant to have an intimate relationship with God. It was deep. And one of his quotes that really got to me was, the most important thing to a human, the most important thing to all people is your view of God. It reveals the truth of our hearts. When we get into an intimate relationship, we can start going, what is my view of God? God, where am I not letting you, like Andrew said, use what's in my hand? Where have I taken back and gone, God, I haven't let you do these things. Father, forgive me. Come to him with thanksgiving in your heart, lifting him up, saying, Father, less of me, more of you. Less of me, more of you. Because what happens whenever you become, when you get into this lifestyle, what should be produced is more generosity, not more greed. So it starts revealing the truth of our hearts. And he does. We level up our actions to his word, to who he is. And then what he does, because it's like any other intimate relationship, it starts inspiring us. It inspires us and gives us confidence in who we are. There's so many times that I get into those moments and I go, God, here's where I'm not letting you do things. Here's where I'm not letting you operate. And I just get on my knees and Father, who am I? And when I'm all there, he starts speaking. You're my son. I've given you gifts to love me. I've given you a beautiful family. All these amazing things that you see to be thankful for. All these things that we take for granted, and we start looking for the blessings because of our human nature to come back and go, this is all about me. No, we crucify it in those moments. Every single day we start living a life habit of getting on our knees, praying to God, saying, Father, less of me, more of you. What is it? Well, you're my son. You're my child. My spirit is in you. When you're in my spirit, there's freedom, and it produces freedom. So it inspires us and gives us confidence. And then lastly, it moves us to take action in our faith. It moves us to take action in our faith. See, in those moments of getting into God's presence is where I start going, God, I don't know what to do next. And he goes, here's what I need you to do next. Here's the thing, and you know what God is telling you. You know that there's a next step that, again, if we want things to change, we got to start changing something in our lives. So I don't know what that next step is, but God starts going, there's someone around you that needs you. There's someone that needs your influence, that needs your relationship to draw them close to me. When we see those things, and that's what God starts revealing. So then it moves us to take action in our faith. It moves us to embrace that person. It moves us, it might be about surrender. God's going, I need you to surrender more to me. I need you to, and something Andrew mentioned that I thought was so great that I wish I'd have mentioned in the first service is, why do we come in here and we lift our hands and worship? That's a complete sign of surrender. What happens when the enemy surrenders? Okay, don't kill me. It's an attitude of surrender that says, so that's why we come here. Maybe God's asking you to surrender some more. This excites me because it's moving us to what I believe is a next step in being what God's called us to be, in tearing down these walls and letting what God is doing here flow out into our community. is it's this next step of every single one of us seeing that we're a family, changing our minds to go, okay, I don't just go to church. I don't just sing the songs. I'm a part of this family that's making a difference in this community. You are a part of us. If you're in this room, God's calling you to be a part of this body and make a difference right where you're at. And the best way to do that is to start engaging in the Spirit of God every day. To start engaging in God's Spirit. And here's a choice we have to start making. We cannot leave an encounter with God unchanged. We cannot leave an encounter with God uninspired. We cannot leave. It's a choice. It's not something that just happens. It's a choice because nothing that's great happens on purpose, right? It has to have some intention. There has to be intention. And we have to be intentional with our ministry. We have to be intentional with our habit of connecting with the Spirit of God. If we want to see God engage in a new way. And I am extremely pumped to be a part of this because like I mentioned before, this is an intentional church. That's why we operate the way we operate. We are an extremely intentional church. The way this team operates, I mean, don't y'all love this team that's up here? The worship team. We've got an amazing media team who's back there being intentional. I know Anthony, he wants you guys to engage so bad that he uploads the songs that we're singing on Monday so that you can have them to sing and get prepared because there's no excuse not to know the songs. We want you not just to know the songs, we want you to come in here and engage with us and help us tear down these walls and let this glory just pour out because it's ours for the taking right now. It's ours for the taking, but we have to be intentional. And the songs that we sing are intentional. We're focusing our mind. We're all in. The songs that Scotty and Andrew and Tim pick to lead, they're intentional. The words that we sing, we want them to be intentional. Because we're intentional about our relationship with God. And it's the only way we'll have breakthrough. This morning, I want to engage. Continue to pour this out. And I encourage everyone, surrender. Surrender this morning. We're going to sing this song that's just blessed my heart. Scotty sent it to me during the 40-day challenge. And I'm telling you, it was something that I added immediately to my everyday engaging in God's presence. To get out of my mind. It's a song called Nothing Else by Cody Carnes. Unbelievable. And this morning, I want to sing this song together and engage our hearts in what God's doing. Let these words be your prayer. Let these words be your anthem. Let these words be your surrender. And start engaging in the Spirit of God every single day. And if you do, I promise you, you will have breakthrough. And we will have breakthrough. Let's stand together. Let's sing.
just sang another song and take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. No, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything, but more than anything that you can do, I just want you. And I'm sorry when I came in my agenda. I'm sorry when I just sang another song and take me back to where we started. I open up my heart to you. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. I never wanna leave. No, I'm not here for blessings. Jesus, you don't owe me anything, more than anything that you can do. I just want you. I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. Just want you, love. I'm caught up in your presence. I just wanna sit here at your feet. I'm caught up in this holy moment. Never wanna leave. No, I'm not here for blessings. No, Jesus, you don't owe me anything, more than anything that you can do. I just want you. Just want you. Just want your presence.
Father, let that be the cry of our hearts. Let that be the position of our hearts, that nothing else will do. We destroy the things that are set up to lead us away from your presence, to lead us away from your attention, God. Let's be intentional with our faith, intentional with our relationship. We love you, Jesus, and we want to see you take over this community. It starts in your presence, because we can't stay the same. We love you, Jesus.